Good morning, Canada. You are watching Breakfast Television this Thursday, September 16th. We are breaking format here as we have an election just around the corner. Canadians heading to the polls in just a few days, and BT has invited all of our major federal party leaders to join us live here on the show to explain why they should be elected and how they're going to lead us post-pandemic. Joining me now, Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada. Good morning to you, Mr. Singh.
Good morning. Good morning.
Appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to get right to it. And I do want to address a controversy which surfaced yesterday. Two MP candidates, anti-Semitic tweets that had surfaced. They removed themselves from the race. But from day one, you have stood for zero tolerance when it comes to discrimination. That's what you have said. Let's bring in a tweet from one of our viewers asking this question. Why were your candidates not properly vetted, leading to two of them dropping out of their candidacies after so many Canadians had already voted in advance polls? Indeed, that is a bit of an issue. Mr. Singh, your response to that?
Yeah, this was a mistake, and I think they made the right decision. We want to build a society where no one is faced with discrimination. Anti-Semitism is impacting people in a really profound and serious way, and we're seeing a rise in hate. And so we've got to be very vigilant. And this was a mistake, and I'm glad that it was fixed.
Mr. Singh, they had removed themselves. Was there a point where you would remove them prior to that happening?
They made the choice, and it was the right choice.
OK, so let's move along. This last year and a half, it's been difficult. That's an understatement for so many different people. We've got the importance of investing in healthcare. No more better time than putting a spotlight on that. Affordable housing, the need for that to happen. People are losing their jobs. A lot of people, a lot of Canadians are struggling right now. Let's bring in this question from a viewer here asking this. Mr. Singh, the NDP are supposed to be the party of working people. The Conservatives are the biggest threat to working people, yet you only attack the Liberals. Is raising your seat count in Parliament worth helping the Conservatives gain power? Have you sold out workers?
Not at all. I mean, we are fighting for people, and every single day in this pandemic, we fought to get more help to more people. We fought to double the CERB. We fought to bring in a higher wage subsidy. And the reality is, on the things that matter to people in this pandemic, long-term care and the people that live there were the hardest hit. People lost their lives. And we said we should remove profit from long-term care. The reality is Mr. Trudeau teamed up with Mr. O'Toole to vote against getting the profit or the greed out of long-term care. We believe that medication coverage should be there for workers, for everyone. And when we brought forward a bill on pharmacare, Mr. Trudeau teamed up with Mr. O'Toole to vote against it. And we said that in this pandemic, everyday folks struggled. But the super wealthy, the billionaires and the multimillionaires and those who use offshore tax havens were able to increase their wealth. We said we should make the billionaires pay their fair share. Mr. Trudeau teamed up with Mr. O'Toole to vote against taxing the super rich. So on those really important things about who pays for this pandemic and how do we get through this and how do we invest in healthcare, both Mr. Trudeau and Mr. O'Toole, both the Liberals and the Conservatives teamed up to hurt people. And I want to make that clear to Canadians. They've got a choice in this election. Mr. Trudeau, who says a lot of things but is all for show and protects the super rich, or New Democrats who fight for you. We're going to make sure the billionaires pay their fair share, make sure we invest in our healthcare. And I want Canadians to know that.
Mr. Singh, you have said that as part of your messaging here, that you have a choice. You have a choice. And we actually had a poll earlier on in our show talking about the idea of strategic voting. It looks like all signs are pointing to that this is going to be a minority government. Are you ready for that? What does that mean for you as a leader of the NDP? Are you ready to roll up your sleeves and work with whoever is in power?
Well, we said from the beginning that that's our goal. Our goal is to get help to people. And we've laid out clearly what our priorities are. We want to make sure we get the profit out of long-term care. We want to make sure we invest in building more homes that people can afford and fight the big money that's in our housing market so that people can actually find a place to call home. We want to make sure we invest in our healthcare. We want to make sure that it's those at the very, very top that pay their fair share to invest in people. And we want to make that happen. Our goal is to make that happen. We actually could be in Ottawa right now continuing that work, but Mr. Trudeau called this selfish election. There's no reason that we were in this election. Canadians still feel frustrated that we're even having this election when we're dealing with the fourth wave, when we're dealing with a crisis of forest fires in BC and Ontario. We should be working on the solutions. Mr. Trudeau chose a selfless election. We are still going to fight for people no matter what happens. People can count on this. If you need help, you Democrats will be there for you. I will be there for you.
Mr. Singh, one of the bigger questions from a lot of our viewers comes with regards to the Trans Mountain Pipeline. You've long opposed the purchase, but it's not clear what you would do with it. Would you keep it? Are you going to sell it? What would be the next steps?
I can tell Canadians what I would do with our public resources. I would invest in renewable energy. I would end the fossil fuel subsidies immediately. I can tell you what Mr. Trudeau did. He bought a pipeline. He continues to subsidize the fossil fuel sector. In fact, at the highest level, higher than even the Harper Conservatives. So if you want someone that's going to defend the environment, New Democrats have shown again and again, we are with you. We want to fight this crisis, and we want to create good jobs. In terms of this project, I've always been opposed to it.
Mr. Singh, I wish we had 5 more minutes with you, but I appreciate you taking the time. I know it's been busy. All the best to you. Thank you so much for joining this morning.
Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Thank you. All right, and as we've been mentioning all morning long, this was the third federal party leader, Jagmeet Singh, joining me live one-on-one here on Breakfast Television. We are waiting on one appearance here, and that is Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, who we have extended an invitation to. We do hope he makes the time for us tomorrow before you head to the polls on the 20th.